Good morning everyone. I once again welcome you all to the last day of the workshop on research methodology and academic writing. Without much ado, we will begin with the first session of the day. I request our honorable speaker, Professor Sanjay Mukherjee, to come up on the dais. I also request Professor Mahesh Dey, the chair of this session, to join us on the dais and felicitate Professor Mukherjee with the university case. Dr. Sanjay Mukherjee received his university education from MS University Baroda and earned his PhD in British cultural criticism under the guidance of renowned scholar and teacher Professor Avdesh Kumar Singh. Dr. Mukherjee is professor and former head of the Department of English and CLS Saurashtra University Rajkot. With more than 27 years of postgraduate teaching experience and over 21 years of research experience. He was a US SUSI Fellow in 2011 at the University of Louisville, Kentucky, and a European Union Erasmus Plus Fellow in 2023 at Constantine the Philosopher University, Slovakia. He has also been invited to the University of British Columbia, Canada, and Kathmandu University, Nepal. Dr. Mukherjee has edited 4 books and published 32 research articles and book chapters in various peer-reviewed journals and edited volumes. I now request Professor Mahesh Dey to kindly take over the session.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everybody. So I know that this is a very weak attendance because of Raksha Bandhan. So yesterday I felt it and I wrote it, and that's the feeling I get sometimes, being the head of the family, and we are taking so much trouble to invite guests for the sake of our students, but some students don't take it seriously, and that's why this happens. But anyhow, Dr. Sanjay Mukherjee is a fellow colleague from Saurashtra University, and he's a very old friend. And if I remember, when I came to Gujarat in 1995, I think the previous year he completed his master degree from MS University. And the first time we met at Srimati Kadakia College, Arts and Commerce College, Ankleshwar, for the interview. And there we had a small interaction, and then I was selected there, and afterwards he joined Saurashtra University, Rajkot. And since then, for the last 30 years, we are friends, and we try to interact, and whenever there is opportunity, we always try to meet. And that's why, but after my headship, I always remembered him that I would like to invite him to the department, but that didn't work out in the last 3 years. And this time when we had the chance, I said now he's comparatively free, and the director of IQSE, and so he can join us. And I asked my colleague Dr. Mihir Mori to invite him, and he accepted our invitation, and that's why we have him with us here, and he will definitely give you a very scholarly talk on his presentation. So I would invite Dr. Mukherjee to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dey. As you became aware of, we are actually on first name terms. He calls me Sanjay and I call him Mahesh. So thank you for your invitation, and I hope those who are here, it would be worth it for all of you. I warmly take note of Professor Gupta here, and she is a senior colleague and friend, and we are meeting after quite a few years. But again, thank you for gracing this occasion and sitting in this talk. Mihir, again, first name Mihir, was a research fellow in our department when we used to have the UGC Special Assistance Program, SAP Departmental Research Scheme, and your Paresh Joshi teacher, I have had the good honor of teaching him too. So it is often an emotion which cannot be described for a teacher when the teacher sees his or her own students reaching places. It is said in Indian knowledge tradition that the Shishya should be always 2 steps ahead of the Guru. That is the contribution of the Guru. And yet sometimes Shishyas go far away and then they don't remember. It doesn't matter actually. But when you are remembered, it is very special. So I am very thankful to this department, all the colleagues in the department, that this could happen. You remembered, and I'm very, privileged to be here amongst you all. Okay, so the hyphen there is important. I want a kind of a discussion here. I do not want a one-way traffic. I have given you certain handouts. I also have certain slides. But this next generation, many of you are students and some of you are research scholars. If I may begin with a question, how many of you are teaching also? Not in the first row, I know, but whether formally or in part-time, ad hoc, contractual, whatever. Can I have a few hands? Yeah. All right. Okay. So you are also teaching. And actually whatever is written here, the critical component, the teachers actually, you might be aware that we face it every day in the class and outside the class to prepare for the class. Okay. So I thought, in the afternoon session, you would be taught about writing. But by the time you come to writing, there is a kind of so I think this is very well organized in this way that a kind of a pre-writing stage is there in the morning, and the elephant in the room will come. We need to bring it out and put it back again, the elephant. And then from here to here in our thesis, that is what we would be taught in the afternoon session. Okay, so this is how you change it. Hey, sorry. To change, you have to just what? This one or this one?
You can be this thing.
No slideshow. I don't want a that's it. Oh, okay. Yeah, fine. I will begin with the last point, and then, which, in the title also you saw the word critical, and here also you see the word critical. One of the things that I was taught when I was a student and I grew up, and Professor Avdesh Kumar Singh's name was mentioned, under whom I did my research, he often gave a direction that when there is a term, one way to know the term is to go to its root, to go to its etymology. And interesting things come out when you go to the root of a term or a word. I don't know whether you know that if you go to the Latin root of the word critical, you also come up with another word called crisis. The word crisis and the word critical, criticism, they have the same Latin root. And research, therefore, is, if say today in 2025, for example, Khatriji is still not able to decide on his research, one reason might be he is suffering from the anxiety of influence. Harold Bloom's term. He used it for poets, but I would say for a new researcher, the anxiety of influence would be, so much has gone before, even if I decide to home in on an area, what would I do in it? That is one of the most important component. People often after their graduation, they go to the teachers and say, किस पे research करें? एटलीस्ट जितने लोग मेरे पास ऐसे करके आते हैं ना, तो ऐसे पहले दिमाग में कुछ भर के आओ. This is not, up to your MA, you enter the classroom with the assumption that there would be a syllabus. The syllabus, you are not in a position to change the syllabus. Here, for the first time in research, you choose your syllabus. So when you have got that freedom, at least choose the large area. And then it would be narrowed down to your topic. Between the area and the topic is a journey, is a process. So what I say is, research always begins with a kind of a prior learning. Unless and until your prior learning is there, you are not developing any hypothesis for the research. And actually prior learning is somebody else's research. Prior learning is what somebody had paved a way, and now you are thinking of going along. And the plus that I have written, I have deliberately kept one more thing deliberately not mentioned. What I say is somebody else's research plus researcher's own information. There is something missing. Can you guess what is missing? Research is a prior learning, that is somebody else's research, plus there should be a plus and a plus. When I say that it would be a discussion, I really meant it would be a discussion. I want a few. Don't worry if it is, in literary studies, nothing is 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 hard mathematical thing. It's a kind of an interpretation that comes. So another thing you should not be afraid of is to interpret and come out with the interpretation. You see, we all live in an age of what is called information explosion and information overload. So information, unless and until you process the information, that processing, that analysis, then it would be just simply like in our generation, what we used to do is that there used to be this photocopying technique, and we used to get what we call iska xerox nikal lo, uska xerox nikal lo, xerox, 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 xerox nikal lo. And then 2 days before exam, we are staring at a mountain load of xeroxes, and then we don't know which one to pluck and start. But we did file up. Nowadays, your generation does the same thing, but with, PDFs, screenshots, all electronic things you are piling up, and you can pile up more with electronic things. At least with physical things, there was some kind of a, your mother would come and say, ये झाड़ू मार के निकाल देंगे, कब से कुछ धूल खा रहे हैं, 2 cobweb भी दिख रहा है उसमें, so on and so forth. Okay. So you need to process all the information that you get. You need to stop with the information. You need to process the information. You need to analyze the information and analyze prior learning. I give you an example. Robert Haas is a big name as a critic. He wrote an introduction recently on an anthology of eco-poetry. I will bring in my examples from eco-criticism because that is an upcoming burgeoning area, and my own research has been in cultural studies or culture, and the binary opposite of culture is nature. So then I started becoming interested in nature. There is this person whom I researched upon called Raymond Williams, who has a very interesting book called Keywords. And in Keywords, he mentions that culture, he mentions something very interesting about this word culture. One, that it is 2 or 3 of the most difficult words in English to define. Number one. So automatically when you read this, you would think if it is second or third most difficult, what is the first most difficult? And right? This is how a researcher's mind should work. Prior learning, you are processing prior learning. And then when you come to the opposite of culture, the binary opposite, nature, Raymond Williams says this is the most difficult word to define. Human nature, environmental nature, characteristic of a thing, nature. In what circumstances are you talking about? Similarly, culture, Raymond Williams' student Terry Eagleton says, what can you leave out of culture? If culture is everything that humans do, if culture is from what F.R. Lewis, Raymond Williams says in a very broad sense that it is a way of life, then everything is a way of life. What can you exclude? Terry Eagleton was talking about in a very specific sense, which applies to us researchers and teachers. He says, there is his work called The Idea of Culture. Blackwell has published. In The Idea of Culture, he says that if everything is culture and then you are bringing that into cultural studies, the discipline of cultural studies, what is it that you will exclude? And he is indicating you can only exclude when you are in an institution and teaching cultural studies, you can exclude as per the specialization of your faculty. Your faculty does not know discipline X, so therefore it is excluded. Like what we get in choice-based credit system, remember we thought we had choices, but then we entered our institutions and the institution said we have only 3 experts, choices on the paper are 7, but only 3 will be offered. Correct? So those who are smiling very broadly and they think they want to become teachers, when you become teachers then you will realize the problem that is there. तो अभी हंस लो, वो चेशायर कैट की तरह ईयर टू ईयर मत हंसो, क्योंकि अगर आप जा रहे हो पढ़ाने, then the same problem, you can only specialize in something. No? If I say what am I a specialist of? I have done research in little bit of cultural studies, cultural criticism, okay, fine. Then I have started becoming interested and I wrote and published a few papers in eco-criticism, eco-poetry, fine. But not everything. I am not an expert, but madam is in language studies, linguistics, ELT. Mihir is a translation expert. Paresh is an expert in ELT. Canadian scholar, you're head of the department. Okay, Prajapati ji, I would also have some area of expertise. Translation, right? So we cannot, what would we leave out of culture when we want to teach culture? We can only leave out as per our expertise. If we are in an institution and we are teaching cultural studies, what we leave out is what we don't have as an expertise. So when we are Robert Haas, my problem is I digress. Robert Haas wrote an introduction to an anthology of eco-poetry, and in that he mentioned about the technique of television, the technique of X-ray and all that. And that made me thinking, and when I started looking at these techniques, I realized that Robert Haas's timeline was wrong. This is what I mean by analysis. That, it fits in very well with his argument. But if you look at the hard timeline when X-ray came up, I give you an example of X-ray, for example, literary example of X-ray. All of you have, at least you have read or you are familiar with the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, T.S. Eliot. Okay, पढ़ लेना यंग बच्चे लोग, कितना अलग लव सॉन्ग होता है, पढ़ तो लो, वैसा गाना मत, वो गाना ही नहीं है बाय द वे, उसमें आप सोचोगे अरे लव सॉन्ग, फिर एक भारी भरकम वर्ड आएगा जे अल्फ्रेड प्रूफ्रॉक, that doesn't go with the lyrical quality of love song, but still you are interested, no, because you are love song. And then you enter the poem, and then the first line says, let us go then you and I, and the second line says, when the evening is spread out against the sky, and you are interested, you and I, Kushnuma Mausam, beautiful evening, and then it comes, like a patient etherized upon a table. नहीं होता पहले, what kind of imagery is this? Does it go along with? If you read that poem, 2/3 of the poem is gone, by the way, and then the speaker Prufrock says, it is impossible to say what I mean. तो भाई साहब अब तक आपका पढ़ रहे हैं तो क्या कर रहे थे? 2/3 of the poem is gone. He says it is impossible to say what I mean, but like patterns thrown up on the wall, on a screen, patterns of the mind thrown up on a screen. Now when you look at this imagery and you look at the persona Prufrock who's hesitating to propose, one of the things that you can see in the poem is he's very hesitant to propose, and he wishes that instead of saying, if there is a magic, the word is magic lantern, if it throws up patterns of the mind on a screen. Now remember, this poem is published in 1917, and X-rays commercial use starts happening at the turn of the century. Here is T.S. Eliot using the technique, very, very modern technique of X-ray. If X-ray can show the deformity inside, can it show the formation of the mind or not? Okay. You have to ponder and you have to stop and you have to go out of the text and you have to connect. So when I started connecting Robert Haas's timeline with the technology, I found that this timeline does not match. This is what I say, that you have to analyze prior learning, stop and analyze, not allow yourself to be overloaded with information. So that will bring you to arriving at new problems. And in literary critical studies, the word critical is positive. The word critical is full of hope, possibilities. The word critical is not like the medical word critical, that your close relative is pronounced by the doctor says now the patient is critical. You know, that means probably the patient will not live. But in literary critical studies, if you come at a critical juncture, it is actually a turning point. It can be a turning point. It can be a very good place to open up further possibilities. So this is where, therefore, I say that there is a critical component in each aspect of research that we do. Okay, I give an example. ये आया नहीं दूसरा स्लाइड, इधर आ गया, आया नहीं, I'm sorry, हाँ, I went out and see, okay,
It's not
huh? It's not catching, see, but I can several times, see, it's not, yeah, just a minute. Okay, okay.
No, just
Okay, okay, fine, great.
this is the arrow that.
I was doing that earlier also.
Okay.
But ठीक है, good. Now, hopefully. Okay. This is another hardcore example that we are taking. Okay. Without examples, again, young scholars probably would have a difficulty. It would be otherwise too theoretical. So, if you take the area of eco-criticism and you are today here in the year 2025, then if you take the American line, okay, this is the American line that I am showing. Do you go to Walden in the 1850s? Then you come down to 1940s, Sand County Almanac, Aldo Leopold. Then you go to Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring. Okay. Anybody has heard Silent Spring? Silent Spring. This is in the 1960s. When you read about eco-criticism, you will often read that this book, Rachel Carson's, is supposed to have begun eco-criticism. 1960s, 62, or Googleshwar Maharaj will tell you, of course, which exactly. So those information we don't deal with anymore. Your teachers also ought not to deal with. Rachel Carson's work, Silent Spring. It is a work in prose on the effect of pesticides on the crops, then the locusts, insects on the crop getting infected first, then the birds getting infected, and so crops are becoming polluted. They are free of insecticides, but the problem starts within, and when the birds eat polluted insects, the birds die. That results into a spring in America where no birds sing. No birds sing. No birds sing is the phrase Rachel Carson borrows from John Keats's La Belle Dame Sans Merci. So that is, so if you have to read and analyze the title, you have to go to the British parallel I've deliberately, because we do a lot of English literature. Okay, so I thought that maybe if I give you the American, so that is a thing that English often English, you can yourself develop a line. For example, should we go to the pastoral? Remember the passionate shepherd to his mistress or love, that Renaissance pastoral we are talking about, Christopher Marlowe's pastoral. So should we go to the pastoral, then come to romantic poetry, John Keats's, which is a great, the nature poet Wordsworth. Okay, down the line, should we come to a person who's still writing, Jonathan Bate, The Song of the Earth? Okay, can we take this line as a British line? Can we develop? There's a lot of focus on Indian knowledge system. What should we do about our line of thought? Should we go to the Shanti mantra first? Daya Shanti, Prithvi Shanti, Apaha Shanti, Vanaspataya Shanti. Okay, should we go there? Should we come to the Bhakti poets who also were so one with nature, their depiction? Should we talk about our colonial period, where for the first time, among the many things that the Britishers have done or not done, they also started something which we are continuing, forest reserve, sanctuaries. So should we start with the question, which was the earliest? What was being done then? And then should we go down, and I have another example of the Indian line. Okay, so which means if you are researching on this, you have old data, but old data must be systematically arranged. You have in research what is called review of literature. Okay. And review of literature is prior learning. First of all, you have to discover the line of learning. Then you have to find them. Those would be your secondary sources. And then you have to track them. As I said, if you're taking from 1850s, 1940s, 1960s, 1990s, Association for the Study of Literature and Environment, ASLE. ASLE is now a formal body devoted to literature and environment. They have biennial, once in 2 years, conferences for researchers, if you are interested, that are online and offline, hybrid mode. You can join the online, because online itself is some dollars as registration fee. So for us, it is online is better. But you get an exposure what is happening there. This is a formal body, ASLE, which was founded in 1992. So you see that happening. And when you go there, here is a new data I am putting in front of you, but I have to move out of literary critical studies and move into another discipline. We all know that in literature or literary studies is a platform of many disciplines. We do history, for example. When we study about Renaissance period, we are going out. We do Renaissance art, for example. We do sociological studies, for example. We do class studies under the influence of Marxist criticism. We do psychological studies under the influence of Freud, and so on and so forth. Okay. So we have to move out. So environmental history was first, the term was established in 1972. Again, you are tracking the development properly, chronologically. Then the American Society for Environmental History comes in 76. European Society lags behind. Okay. Now, I digress for 2 minutes to say When Raymond Williams and his friends established the Birmingham Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies, BCCCS, America stood up and America said, why didn't we think of this before? Because post Second World War, America is becoming the most important world power, and Birmingham Center gets established in the 60s, and America says, oh, we missed a chance. And then Cultural Studies Center starts up in American campuses, it goes into Australian campuses and so on and so forth. Here, for example, America is ahead of Europe. Okay. That comes up way in 1999. One reason, because Europe is many nations. No, there is often not an agreement. Should we, as a kind of European Union, should we establish this? All these are happening, and look at the thing that I have not highlighted because it is not often highlighted. You know, I could have also selected that 1973 and Chipko movement and made it bold. But deliberately why I did not do it is because, again, third world country, they are so busy managing their poverty, managing their food, that people like Amartya Sen and economists and Ramchandra Guha, they say that it is as if environmental discourse is not supposed to be dealt with by developing countries because they are too poor for that. That is what is, again, this is a kind of an oriental thought that the Westerns have, that we are too poor, we are too poor, too busy feeding ourselves. What should we think about nature? We are too busy cutting wood and fueling fire. चूल्हा जलाने में busy हैं ताकि खाना बने. We are too busy with that. But in 1973, Chipko movement happened, which was largely a movement by uneducated rural women. Sundarlal Bahuguna is a leader that we know, but actually the grassroots workers who put their bodies before the whatever, that JCB which came, who simply put their bodies, if the tree goes, we go first. Today, just 2 days ago, you saw all the visuals of Uttarkashi. Okay. Those rural women knew the connection between the health of the trees and the mountains and their own day-to-day way of life. That happens in 1973. When Ramchandra Guha writes a book on it, okay, The Unquiet Woods, Ecological Change and Peasant Resistance in the Himalayas, then it starts getting noticed by sociologists, economists, historians who specialize and call themselves environmental historians. Okay, it starts happening. I have given a few names. J.R. McNeill is a big name in environmental history. J. Donald Hughes is a big name. And then I put literary critics also. Helen Tiffin is a big name, for example. Yeah, post-colonial. Graham Huggan and Helen Tiffin, they have brought out a book called Post-Colonial Eco-Criticism by Routledge. All of them mention that movement, the Chipko movement. Okay, all of them mention. And that is something which was India-centric. And when we say that, okay, this is hard data that we have, often India lacks in having hard data. And when there is data, only then we can counter the meticulously kept data and sometimes manufactured data by the West. Okay. So this is but you have to move out to get a different source. You have to become मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी. आजकल ये बहुत चलने लगा है. हाँ, हम लोग तो भाई पहले से ही करते थे उसका नाम. हाँ, आई मीन कभी हमने ऐसा नहीं सोचा कि हम भी मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी हैं और हम भी मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी टास्क करके हम मल्टी टास्किंग करते हैं. हम बास्किंग नहीं करते थे मल्टी टास्किंग पे ऐसा करके, है ना. तो ये करते थे. That was part of our, that was what was taught by our teachers, that you move and do and bring together, harness the different disciplines from various places. Okay, so this is another what I am asking, that we are moving into different. Okay, here comes 2025 data. Sometimes new data means fresh from the oven. Nobody has yet got to it. Sometimes new data literally means new. It means new. Okay. So Amitav Ghosh's, it's a collection of essays. You might have heard. Some might have read. Wild fictions. There is an essay called Wild Fictions in this collection called Wild Fictions. And he is talking about July 1852, colonial India, on the banks of the Hooghly near Kolkata, Calcutta. Suddenly there is a surge in the river and a school of riverine whales gets deposited on the shore. Okay. तो ये खबर कैलकटा एशियाटिक सोसाइटी के महान कंट्रोलर एडवर्ड ब्लाइथ is a person who is regularly in touch with Charles Darwin. He comes to know about it and he makes all arrangement to capture the creatures so that he can turn them into perfect skeletons. The word his perfect skeleton is his word. And Amitav Ghosh has researched this aspect from the marginal notes kept in Asiatic society. Now, Amitav Ghosh is a very deep researcher. Okay. So, he rushed. He found a few adults. Some of the adults were 14 feet long. And he was so excited that here I will bring to the world a new species. I will research on that. I will turn them into perfect skeletons. Okay, what happens then? First thing he notices that the fishermen community, it happened late in the previous evening and night, whole night, he got the report that the fishermen community had worked to put many of the fish back into the river. He was surprised because the fish is meat, fish is flab, oil, all those things can be got. I mean, they could have been used commercially. A few capture of the fish could have resulted in many of the fishermen families sitting and eating for 2-3 months. Instead, what did they do? They all kept awake overnight and kept pushing as many as possible. Edward Blythe selects 2 males and 2 females, tethers them properly, and then the problem is you need transport, right? So he goes to arrange transport. When he comes back, they are gone. Now, Amitav Ghosh is then asking a question. These fishermen, uneducated, but like so many other old civilizations, people are living with nature. So what could have they been thinking? This is what he asks. And he writes, he observes, and a new term emerges. For me as a reader, what he gives, okay, I find it hard to believe that they were not allied also to a certain sense of awe, wonder, and even compassion at the sight of the distress of these majestic creatures. Is it possible? He asks, is it possible there was no talk among the villagers of divine visitations? See, a pagan society worships animals. A pagan society worships trees. A pagan society worships rivers. You will find there are many travel writing books on major Indian rivers like Ganga and Narmada. And many foreigners have come and travelled on the Ganga and the Narmada and other rivers also. First thing that they wonder is, the West treats a river as a water body. And here it is as if a mother, something divine, something beyond, something transcendental, something metaphysical, beyond physical. And the first thing that strikes them is this. What is that mind? So when this divine visitations, no stories told of signs from heavens, they must be thinking like this. Amitav Ghosh is speculating. What made those fishermen free those animals, give up commercial exploitation when they could have done it? They are fishermen. It is their quote unquote dharma to catch fish. And here is fish given to them. Why didn't they take it? I cannot conceive there was not these kind of thoughts. Such emotions might appear to have little in common with an ecological awareness. About scientific ecological awareness के साथ ये बैठेगा नहीं. But if indeed there is in cultures at large, as well as in works of literature, such a thing as an environmental unconscious. This is the term I take. It is not italicized or made bold there. He simply uses it. But like Jung's collective unconscious, this is a collective environmental unconscious that many old civilizations, people of many old civilizations who are often pagan, okay, they think in that way. Then surely it would consist in an overlapping of the pragmatic and the poetic. Poetic in that sense, when we say, no, it's a poetic justice, वहाँ पे you cannot ask, कौन सी कविता sir? In the larger sense, something which is poetic is something which is aesthetic, just, proper, जो हमारे इसमें है ना औचित्य, जिसका औचित्य है, उचित. A broad acknowledgement of mutual dependence in which rights, mutual obligations, and a sense of wonder are seamlessly merged. This is 2025 text. People interested in environmental criticism. Not much work has been done on it. You would be doing first-hand work. Often researchers, young researchers are, they come very daunted by the task कि सर कोई मटेरियल नहीं मिल रहा है इस पे. वही एमए वाली टेंडेंसी कि टेक्स्ट ना हो तो चले, गाइड मिल जाए तो अच्छा. वो जाते हो अब अपेक्षित છે કઈ અપેક્ષિત ઉપેક્ષિત આપો ને આમાં. All those guide companies, Jamna Das, Mohan Das, जो भी दास, अटली, तो ठाकर, हाँ जो भी, all those things they go on. and all the booksellers, when you go for that, they will have that first, because that sells like hotcakes. सो कुछ मटेरियल नहीं है रिसर्च के लिए, कुछ मटेरियल नहीं है. रिसर्च में भी मटेरियल दिया जाएगा तो क्या रिसर्च कर रहे हो? सो you should not be daunted if the thing is so fresh that you would be one of the earliest to comment upon, to analyze, to research upon. That should be, you should take it up as a challenge. That is, and then you should cull out the new terms that are coming out from your reading and make a note. Okay. I'm sure when you get to listen to Madam, she would be talking about how to write. No, I'm telling you how to read in order to write. Research reading is not time pass reading. Research reading is always, आजकल हम डालते हैं ना, टीचर्स लोग डालते हैं ना, कोर्स आउटकम, प्रोग्राम आउटकम, आउटकम. तो हम लोग पहले से आउटकम मतलब अभी वापस डालना पड़ता है आउटकम लिटरली. बट रिसर्च रीडिंग इज रीडिंग विथ अ टारगेट, it's an outcome oriented. What is the outcome? Outcome is that what have you jotted down, what have you underlined, what have you culled out, what have you got. Those points will be the raw material for your chapters. In synopsis, you always write tentative chapterization. You never write, अगर सब मटेरियल मिल गया तो why don't you write final chapterization? रिसर्च करने से पहले मैंने रिसर्च कर लिया, आइंस्टाइन के ऊपर हूं मैं, है ना. So, okay. So here is your, the researcher घिरा हुआ with all these arrows and problems. Researcher has to read, has to listen without falling asleep. Okay. And when you listen, there will be some speakers who will give you certain contextual kataksh, जो आप पे एरो मार के आएंगे, वो सबको झेलना पड़ेगा, contextual kataksh. Then the sifting has to go on, and then the drafting will come. First draft, second draft. Okay. So those who know, for example, Professor Singh, when we give chapters, he would have two kinds of lines, vertical line, horizontal line. Then you receive with the vertical line and horizontal line. Then you first wonder, what does this mean? What does that mean? What it is supposed to mean, you are going again in a very hesitant kind of a, sir, did you mean this for this? And there will be a, You have to understand, okay, ab tir sahi laga. And then, sir, did you mean this? Oh, sorry, wapas. So you have to go back. Not all guides are like that. Okay. Some guides might be giving you, I don't consider them as guides, by the way, but ready-made material. सर जी वैसे गाइड के पास मत करना, है ना, कुछ खुद सीखोगे नहीं. खत्री साहब, हमेशा याद रखना, start with a challenge and you will reap the benefit 5 years down the line. So no material is there, build material. Someday somebody has built the material, no, therefore there is material. Build the material. So this is a kind of, I got tired typing, so I put it in a diagram. Okay, so thoda change aapko. So what is research reading? We start with an assumption after reading. We have a kind of, as I said, outcome oriented. There are two things happening in research reading. One is that your literature review is a width, but still we are within the frame, that is depth. There is a difference between your net preparation, which is a width, and your research preparation, which is vertical, depth. Okay. I got inspired by the W.B. Yeatsian spiral diagram, gyres, which has a depth, which has a width also. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. My habitual liking is poetry. Another thing that, so if I have a footnote कि भाई किस में स्पेशलाइज किया है, स्पेशलाइज नहीं किया है पोइट्री में, फिर मजा आता है पढ़ाने में. And I find in my 27 plus years of teaching, थोड़े बच्चों को भी मजा आता है मेरे साथ पोइट्री करने में. तो इसीलिए the gyre diagram that Yeats has, it is a beautiful diagram. It plumbs the depth, and yet it moves broad and broad. Research is something like that. You have to know what is also the limit. One thing Professor Singh always used to tell us, सब कुछ रिसर्च में कर दोगे तो बाद में क्या करोगे, है ना? अल्टीमेटली हियर सर कितना 6 साल के अंदर करना पड़ता है. व्हाट इज द 3 से 6 साल ना, मैक्सिमम 6 साल. हम लोग सब 6 साल वाले थे. नया नया पीजी में पढ़ाओ, साथ में रिसर्च भी करो, और फिर सर से टाइम भी मांगो. और बाय द वे सेटल तो हुए नहीं हो. There are benevolent uncles and aunties who want you to settle down, which is more unsettling, by the way. Very unsettling. These settle down propositions that keep coming. Okay, so this is both the things you have to do. Okay, and it is outcome based, and I go here. We come to a kind of a reading activity. I have given a few handouts. One handout is dancing in Cambodia. है मेरे पास, लेके आया हूँ. Mir, I was also prepared. Suppose electricity goes, this is monsoon, सब कुछ करके लाए हो. See, you have to be prepared, na? A lot of my first book review, my first journey as a researcher, Paresh might not know this. My first journey as a researcher, Paresh, when I just entered and I was teaching, Professor Singh used to run Critical Practice, a very renowned literary journal. No internet, nothing. Hard copies of articles used to come, and Professor Singh used to go through and then give us some for proofreading and all that. And then we used to collect the hard copies, selected essays, and send it to Creative Books Delhi. And their typists would be doing the first draft, again sending us. There would be a lot of typos. We would be matching it with the hard copy, sending it back to them. And yet, more or less, 2 issues per year would come out of Critical Practice. So one day, about 6 months into my ad hoc, sir said, कुछ लिखोगे? Okay. मतलब कुछ लिखूंगा तो एटलीस्ट सर देखेंगे. कुछ लिखोगे का ये मतलब होता है. You are not, कुछ सर लिख दिया. So then, sir had his chair and there was a window which was always open. AC नहीं थे हमारे वहाँ पे उस वक्त. It would go out of the window. ठीक है. Uh, writer, I mean, metaphorically has already gone that side. So, my first book review. So he said, why don't you start with a book review? And Amitabh Ghosh's Calcutta Chromosome had come out. It later on established itself as one of the most important science fiction written by an Indian, originally in English. Calcutta Chromosome. And I wrote a 2.5 page review of Calcutta Chromosome. That is the beginning of my journey as a researcher. Then, of course, down the line, I guided a student with a lot of primary sources on Amitabh Ghosh. So that is another as in the journey as such. It is called Travel and Interpretive Writing, Dancing in Cambodia at Large in Burma. So when you read this, you will find at one level it begins with something very, very definite, as if, and Amitabh Ghosh has a training in history, historian. Okay. On 10th May 1906, at 2 in the afternoon, even time is mentioned, a French liner called the Amiral Cassin set sail from Saigon carrying a troupe of nearly 100 classical dancers and musicians from the royal palace at Phnom Penh. They were to stage the first ever performance of Cambodian classical dance in Europe at the Exposition Coloniale in Marseille. And then I have given you the first section. When you read it, you will find this is history, this is journalism, and this is interpretation also. Authorial interpretation is also coming in. And when I move to page number 2, so there is this great group of dancers. The crowd had its first brief glimpse of the dancers when the Amiral Cassin loomed out of the fog shortly after 9 and drew alongside the quay. A number of young women were spotted on the bridge and on the upper decks, flitting between portholes and clutching each other in what appeared to be surprise and astonishment. Within minutes, a gangplank decorated with tricolored buntings had been thrown up to the ship. Soon the king himself appeared on deck, a good-humoured, smiling man dressed in a tailcoat, a jewel-encrusted felt hat, and a dhoti-like Cambodian sampot made of black silk. The king seemed alert, even jaunty, to those privileged to observe him at close range. A man of medium height, he had large, expressive eyes and a heavy-lipped mouth topped by a thin moustache. Character sketch. But you pay attention to the word, for example, jaunty, Jaunty. That is what Amitabh Ghosh feels looking at the portrait. There were no videos, of course, and the records of this king. Seemed alert, even jaunty. Now this is not there. This is the author puts in. And then this goes on, and there is at one place where on page number 4. Now look at this second paragraph. Let me start with page number 3, last paragraph. The dancers were on the ship's first class deck. They seemed to be everywhere, running about, hopping, skipping, playing excitedly, feet skimming across the polished wood. The whole deck was a blur of legs, girls' legs, women's legs, fine, elegant legs. for all the dancers were dressed in colorful sampots which ended shortly below the knee. The onlookers, Parisian crowd, were taken by surprise. They had expected. Now this is the Oriental gaze. They had expected perhaps a troupe of heavily veiled, voluptuous Salomes. They were not quite prepared for the lithe, athletic women they encountered on the Emerald Kersain, nor indeed was the rest of Europe. Paris, since long, is the culture capital. If Paris thinks in one way, Europe thinks in the same way. So if Paris opines, Europe opines. If Paris is taken by shock, Europe is taken by shock. So you can actually apply Orientalism here when you analyze what kind of image before even seeing. That is what Edward Said is saying, right? Before even seeing the Orient, you have formed the image of the Orient, and now you see the Orient and it does not fit your already formed image. So then what are you doing about it? Hey, what is the time, by the way? Please tell me. Because 12:15, right? Okay. So if I am giving, and now I am giving to the researchers a few questions, if you can jot down. As you can think of them as research tasks. First of all, I start with very simple things. Identify the timeline of the text. Very simple. When you read it, it will immediately come. Okay? When you read the text, you read these with these questions. Number 2, identify the important people mentioned in the text. There is, by the way, the mention of the king's daughter there, and the king's daughter is interviewed. If I can, okay, yeah. On page 5, just go to page 5. The king's daughter is being interviewed. Do you like French women? They asked the princess. First they were shocked by the women. Now they are asking, do you like French women? अरे अभी तो आई है, अभी तो ship से उतर रही है. Okay, look at the question. Okay, do you like French women? Oh, pretty, so pretty, she replied. What else can she say? And she has gone, she's being hosted, right? She cannot say obnoxious. Obviously, there's tehzeeb बोल के कोई चीज है. And their clothes, their hats. French women, their clothes. Remember, fashion capital. Their clothes, their hats, just as pretty as they are themselves. Beautifully said, no? Beautifully responded. Just as pretty as they are. So what is this? Thinking mind. First of all, women are not supposed to think. Here is, look, immediate question answer. Just as pretty as they are themselves. Would your highness like to wear clothes like those? Then it comes very firm. No. The princess said after a moment's reflection, no, I am not used to them and perhaps would not know how to wear them. Right? So I am not going to be colonized. You start getting, but they are still pretty. Oh yes. Okay. They're still pretty. They are they. So often we don't, when we see differences And that is what Derrida often says, no? We hierarchize. Differences can be differences without one coming under the hierarchy of the other. What Amitav Ghosh is presenting are two cultures. Not necessarily one is better, the other is lesser. But we think the other is lesser because Cambodia at that point of time was a French colony. Okay. So it might be so. So as I am saying, when you read this, you read these with some questions that come, and these questions are indicative only. I mean, you form your own questions. I am just giving you a kind of a way to proceed. Okay, then look at the places that are mentioned: Phnom Penh, Marseille, Cambodia, France. Okay. And then your reading should become slightly difficult. The Orientalist responses you have to gather. Now here comes theory. Here comes your base that can be with that. The way, today there is something called the gaze theory. The way the dancers are presented as somebody looks. Okay. Their body, their dress. And of course, you'll have to see this entire thing under, as if you read the text as it goes on, under a kind of a post-colonial response, post-colonialism. Then this is called a travel and interpretive writing. So there is under the genre of travel writing, you have to put this text. And this word is very important: travel and interpretative writing. What are you interpreting when you are traveling? What does this author interpret as the author travels? Okay, I just give you a glimpse. On page 5 again, the second section I have not given you. If you get interested in this, you will probably look at what Ghosh says now. In January 1993, I met a woman who had known both princess and the king. Her name was Chi Sami, and she was said to be one of Cambodia's greatest dancers, a national treasure. She was also Pol Pot's sister-in-law. You will have to go to find out Pol Pot and what happened, what destruction, devastation happened to Cambodia. One of the most touching passages from this book, which if I read it out to you, it will probably not, you have to feel it yourself, is what happens is, after the Pol Pot regime's devastation, when Cambodia is limping back again, after many years in Cambodia, a dance festival is held. There is the description of the elaborate richness of the costumes and everything of these classical dancers when the king was there. And now there is absolutely drastically cut short. There is no silk, for example. The clothes are just, they are not even secondary. They're 3-4 times removed from the actual dancing costumes. There is no set. There is no money to construct and elaborate anything elaborate. The audience are all sitting around, and even in that impoverished form, when the dance begins, Amitav Ghosh records, people start crying. And when a journalist asks them, why are you crying? We are out of the Pol Pot regime now. We are heading towards a better time now. Why are you crying? And they mention, we never thought we would see our dance again. We thought it was gone, it was lost. Dear students of literature and art, when your science friends ask about the power of art, don't quarrel with them. Don't bang your head against the wall. But you should know what is the power of texts, what is the power of art. The power of art is felt. It cannot be scientifically analyzed. Sitting on a psychologist's couch, કે about depression માં લાગે છે. It cannot be done that way. Okay. So one of the most beautiful passages from this, it is a slim book. One part is Cambodia, another part is Burma. Dancing in Cambodia, at large in Burma. This is called. Okay, if you get this book in your holidays, it's one of the neglected texts by Amitav Ghosh. A text that we don't go through, we don't mention it often. I feel even Calcutta Chromosome is a neglected text. People are talking about Hungry Tide. People are talking about the shadow lines. Because ready-made theory is available, no? Shadow lines, partition. Hungry Tide, environmental devastation. So if texts fall in neatly within theories, people go for it, there are more reviews, there is more visibility. But as a researcher, one thing that you can do different is bring out not so visible text of a visible author. That can also be one way of doing research. Okay, so I've taken it as a kind of a, as I said, reading practice and activity, and therefore we then arrive at a topic. So if the broad area is eco-criticism, the topic is not eco-criticism. The topic is something refined, filtered, and the topic is something that you have to think. So you start with a broad area. As I said, you can take the American line, you can take the British line, you can take the Indian line, and then you have to arrive at a topic. Okay. You will find, for example, many works that are brought under environmental criticism are dystopic. A lot of dystopia with Margaret Atwood and all these. So I asked one or two, I was attending this ASLE conference online, and I asked one or two important scholars sitting there in America, why so? And I did not get so they said, it is a very important question. Yes, it is so. But I said, sir, but why so? मेरा क्वेश्चन वो नहीं था, मेरा क्वेश्चन था कि why so? मुझे भी पता है it is so, इसीलिए तो मेरा क्वेश्चन था why so. आप लोग बैठे हुए हो न्यूयॉर्क के ASLE में, मेरा अदना सा क्वेश्चन है why so? तो आंसर है it is so. But you have to think in that terms, okay, which means your question is a valid question. Probably you will have to find out the answer. Again, literary studies does not provide you with answers. It provides you more with questions. But the questions ought to be good questions. Okay. It ought to be good questions. That is another thing. All right. So, when you arrive at a research topic, which is earlier your interest, you have gathered material, you have arrived at a research topic, then simple activity, I'm giving you the starting activity. Simple activity is, does it contain terms, does it contain period, does it contain important critics, names, thinkers, philosophers, authors, does it contain a movement, does it contain any isms, discourse? Okay. You have to ask the area that you are interested, or you can start with these aspects, what to find, what to find, what to find, and then link it up and try to arrive at your topic. This is one way of going about your research. You have more or less, you have shown your interest, you have identified your interest, then what to do after that. Okay, this the last point is important here. Shodh Ganga everybody knows. Do you know ONOS? One nation, one subscription. InflibNet India Government Initiative, 13,000 plus journals in all fields of knowledge already gathered. Your institution has to subscribe through InflibNet. So the library of the librarian of the institution should go through InflibNet and it would be made available. There is a regional state quarters of InflibNet in Gandhinagar, and in one of the IQAC meetings, I met the InflibNet chairperson there, and she said, Indians are not using it. So I said, Madam, perhaps we still have to make young people aware. Not many young people know about ONOS. Okay. One nation, one subscription. If you have an idea of ONOS, you go into ONOS, you put a prompt, and research articles will keep coming. This happens with JSTOR also. JSTOR also, by the way, it is very costly otherwise. I have seen some foreign scholars who have their personal JSTOR account, but they earn in dollars and they spend there. But for us, it would be really very difficult unless and until we convince our institution and subscribe for JSTOR. So then it will come, like ONOS, like JSTOR, it will come, your account is supported by, then their institution name will come, and you can search for many articles. I have, had young lecturers at various colleges whose institution do not have JSTOR. They have given the prompt to me, I have searched, and you can get PDFs, and I have emailed back PDFs to them. Okay. So this is how you can help a fellow researcher. If your institution is subscribing, the point is that ONOS and JSTOR, they are also saying, we are giving it to you, but nobody is using it. People are not, the end user is not getting benefited as much. Government of India has put in crores of rupees into ONOS. So at every place I go, at least, I try to make young people aware. I try to make my senior colleagues just to check whether ONOS is there with their institution or not, and then it is done. So the young researchers can then go with it. Okay. Now, this is a little hardcore, but this is taking you into, I am looking at when did the critical turn happen? 10 minutes. Okay. So these are tables, and Mihir, you have my PPT, right? Please share. There is no copyright, copy left. Do left and right and copy it. Okay. So look, you all know, actually criticism in English began with what is called Cambridge English. Criticism in English began with a person called I.A. Richards, who did not belong to English studies, who was from psychology and philosophy. His discipline was then called mental and moral sciences. Psychology was itself trying to establish itself. Mental sciences it was called, and moral sciences philosophy. So with that we begin new criticism. New criticism is so important that it is still relevant in a classroom, or in a very informal kind of a way. If in your society somebody comes to know that you are an MA in English or PhD holder or researcher, they might come and say, Didi, ye kavita kya kare? You cannot say, beta, ye mere syllabus mein nahi tha. तुम्हारा तो कैरेक्टर असैसिनेशन हो ही गया उसी वक्त, समझ लो तुम तो मर ही गए, पर तुम्हारा डिसिप्लिन भी मर गया. एटलीस्ट उसके बारे में सोचो, जिसके ऊपर आपने 5 साल इन्वेस्टमेंट किया है अपनी कीमती जिंदगी का, BA, MA, मास्टर्स. Then you cannot say, I didn't have this poem in my class. Okay. You didn't have it, no problem. There is a poem. You know how to analyze it. Okay. When you have nothing, with only the competence of language, that is why with new text is the world in new criticism. Don't go anywhere. Text is the world. Later on, Derrida and deconstruction would say the world is the text. But Derrida is also a very close reader. Very, very close, minute, with magnifying glass he reads with the text. So these are some of the, Marxist theory. Marxist theory actually started becoming well known, not with Marx so much, but again turn of the century. Christopher Caldwell, such people started coming in, started working, and then it started becoming better. Okay. And then this, you take the Marxist theory and you go all the way to one of my favorite thinkers, Raymond Williams. Okay. He is often called a revisionary Marxist. Revisionary Marx. Like Jacques Lacan is called a revisionary Freudian, neo-Freudian or whatever we call it. Okay, neo-Freudian Lacan is there. Okay. And these are points that you have heard. In a way, I am just going through them. But probably the last one, the Frankfurt School, critical theory, the term was given by Frankfurt School. And the Frankfurt School, in Frankfurt, they became well known in the English speaking world, not in 1923, but when they ran away from the Hitler regime and established themselves in America. And then Adorno, Horkheimer, Walter Benjamin, and all these people started getting known. Okay. But the term critical theory, which is translated from German, critical theory, the Frankfurt School only wanted to study Institute of Social Research, it was called actually. Later on it became Frankfurt School. They wanted to study 3 things. 1, what is happening with the society after the First World War, or as it was called then, Great War. Number 2, how has the society been impacted with the Russian Revolution when the Tsar's entire setup changed into a communist setup. And number 3, in the 1920s, what is the health of capitalism and what is the health of socialism, communism. Literature was not their concern. Broadly, society and culture, administration, policy, economics was their concern. And when we study this, but how it has come with our literary theories now. Okay? Then postmodern critical terms I'm talking about. Again, we are now at a stage which is called the post-theory. Okay. So theory not in the sense that, say, Ferdinand de Saussure downwards to Derrida, to Lacan, to Paul de Man, all these people, Geoffrey Hartman, or the Yale mafia of critics. Harold Bloom. Okay, we talk about. We are talking about things like, now not only the world is the text, but the world has many texts after 1990s. So for example, feminism is not a uniform text anymore. There are feminisms. Okay. New historicism has told us what? Do not write history with a capital H, and do not write history in the singular. Okay. So there are many texts now that we are trying to do. And the fifth is becoming very important. We will all retire. I don't know about Mihir. Khatri Sahab will not retire. But what will Khatri Sahab do, you know? I am predicting your future, Khatri ji. You will sit in a beautiful, small, 10 by 10 room, soundproof, and you will be making videos of your lectures. And it would be then disseminated, because students will not come hither. They will be thither. They will say, chai peete peete, Khatri Sahab ka lecture aa raha hai, online. Universities will have to produce e-materials. Universities as a result might get known because of their good teachers, good e-materials beyond its academic jurisdiction. Beyond its academic jurisdiction. That is what AI will impact us. Sam Altman has already said the universities will not go away. Universities will transform. It will transform. Okay. So, and that is giving a lot of strife, lot of trauma. But then again, there is physical trauma going on everywhere. You know, everywhere there is strife, there is war, there is this and there is that. That is a reality that we are facing. And of course, climate crisis. Uske बारे में तो मैंने बात कर दी है, environmental criticism and all that. So I think I'll stop here. I have this thing, and then I'm actually summing up and this and that, and I have other handouts given to you. Okay, and you can read them, and without TADA also I will come once, and we can just to be with us, because honestly speaking, teachers earn quite a bit. Now, it is another thing, Khatri Sahab, you are a young teacher, may you rise. खत्री साहब उनकी अभी फ्यूचर खतरे में है ना, तो इसलिए तो खत्री साहब को हम याद कर रहे हैं. तो we will earn a lot, and but we don't have a sense of enough ना. We don't have a sense of enough. अरे मेरी गाड़ी अभी भी मर्सिडीज नहीं हुई, नहीं हुई. Okay, we don't have a sense of enough. Otherwise, so we will come. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
So thank you, Professor Mukherjee, my colleague and close friend, to deliberate on a very important aspect of research, that is literary theory. He began with the history and trend and eco-criticism and eco-poetry, and his horizon is very vast. And he winded up with converting us into contemporary researchers. And so you can make your selection based on your reading. Without reading, it cannot be a shallow research. And although the time scheme is there, it is a minimum 3 years you have to work, but maximum 6 years, and our authorities also can extend you for another 2 years. So if you are in a hurry to get into the job market with your degree very quickly, so it is minimum 3 years. and you should keep that deadline in mind. If you are not in a hurry and you don't need money so urgently, like Europeans, and even you are a very senior adult, you can keep moving around the world and explore the world and acquire knowledge through traveling, and then later on job will follow you. That's my belief. If you are not struggling to be an academician like all of us, then you can explore in your own way. Many modern day gurus you can find, those who are IIT graduates, but they are becoming swamis, Eastern swamis, and what is that other guru? Art of Living. What is the name? Ravi Shankar's disciples, Sadguru disciples. So all of them are very, even Swaminarayan gurus you can find. So all of them are very highly graduates from abroad, and but they don't need job, and they are like corporate gurus. So, but we are not actually at that point of time. So we are struggling with the basic points. If some of you are having some very questions urgently to be asked to Professor Mukherjee, I would welcome 2-3 questions from our participants so that he will interact with you before you disperse for the lunch. Welcome. Please come up. So, our research scholar
And Prajapati ji also had.
Manthan given Napidu.
Just a minute.
Achha.
I will break the ice and I will begin. Actually, I don't have any question. I want to congratulate you, sir, for making a well thought of, well delivered presentation. And I thank you once again because you have also burdened, you have also reduced our burden.
Oh, I thought I have burden. Huh? Good, good.
No. In the sense that the audience that we have from semester 1 students and semester 3 students. After 1 and 2 years, they will definitely go for research. So you have really shown them how to begin the thinking in the area of research. Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
So when you said that as researchers we need to search for unrelated works, so how can we approach such texts that are under research or they lack the established body of criticism, and how to ensure that that research is relevant or very much focused when we are
At the hello. Hello.
Yes.
At the beginning, you yourself will not be able to make that out. Remember that circle diagram? So today, for example, I gave you 2 texts. If you are interested in Amitav Ghosh, I said 2 texts are not well researched. Okay. You hear. This is not a writing on the wall. You can try it out. Okay, is it so? At least you will get interested in these 2 texts. So, if then it happens that one text interests you, you can take travel and interpretive writing, one being this text and the other writers. Travel writing is a new genre. See, and that is now being explored. Okay, so you can take that up. Ultimately, the test will happen with yourself only. But you have to catch, as I said, the environmental unconscious. It struck me. So I'm sharing it with you. You now find, can it be a key word, environmental unconscious? Okay, Native Americans have environmental unconscious. Australian Aborigines have the environmental unconscious. So can we take a text from here, a text there, do a comparative analysis and build up on a theory of eco-criticism broadly? But what is this environmental unconscious? For example, and I can give you an example with only. So you hear from somewhere, you read from somewhere, You have to, your antenna should be very, very alert to catch it, to jot it, and then to explore. Okay. Khushwant Singh was asked a question in his 95th year. He lived for a long time. And he was asked a question, how do you know that XYZ book is a good book or a bad book? And he said, simply by reading. How else can we know? And then the next question was, do you have any way to write? No, what the question seeker wanted to know was, is your writing a spontaneous overflow or this and that? So he said, look, what does a salesman do? Get up in the morning, wear tie and coat, go out to sell. What does a halwai do? Make mithai, sell mithai every day. I followed this principle. It may not be true for others, but I am a writer. Every day in the morning I sit at my desk. Okay. Maybe only one paragraph comes, which the next day I will cancel out. But regimentation, research also requires regimentation. You have to read, you have to visit certain places, you have to visit library. In Surat, you have Institute for Social Research. Center for Social Research. I stayed 1 week here at their guest house when I wanted to do on Marxist discourse. Sir, it is a very good place for the left wing and Marxist discourse because I was doing it for Raymond Williams and Terry Eagleton, the neo-Marxists and the revisionary Marxists. So you have to move out of your comfort zone. And so research is, kind of meetha dard, paradoxical. But you have to fall into it first. Otherwise you need not. Not everybody should go for research. Isn't it? Sir just said a beautiful thing. Whole life, and I have just got 5 more or 6 more years to retire. Madam, I have been thinking कि मेरा कोई आंटी क्यों नहीं है अमीर जो मेरे लिए पैसे छोड़ के दे। तो कितने का सुनता हूँ, कहानियों में सुनता हूँ, ग्रेट एक्सपेक्टेशन में पढ़ा है, ये हमारे साथ क्यों नहीं होता है ऐसा? कितना अच्छा होता है, जॉब ना करना पड़ता। पहले तो मैंने वो इमेजिनरी आंटी को मार दिया, फिर उसने सारा पैसा मेरे को दे दिया। मैंने क्या किया पता नहीं। Did I earn it? Did I do any seva of that imaginary auntie or not? वो मैं नहीं सोच रहा हूँ। How beautiful it would be if we don't have to do a job. But alas, here all of us have to. We have to. Since we have to work. Na? Since if you want to do research, take that as a work. You have to. Why are people like us called at other institutions? Madam, me, we call him, why are people? Because now, gradually, one day we were sitting there, na? Gradually, we have established ourselves in a small way as scholars. How has that happened? Because of a research mind. A researcher is disturbed, it's a meetha, it has to happen. You have to study, your chapter can be only tentative chapters, it is cancelled out. Again you type now, alright? Only then you will come to know. Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Afterthought. Ma'am, do you have to?
Ma'am, some observations.
Some observations or remarks?
We were talking about the peacocks on the campus.
Ah, see? How beautiful it is, the ambience.
Some of the prospective scholars, the last one. You want? You think about it.
I was reminded of Professor Endel Raina. You must have met him at some stage. So I was lucky enough to be his student.
Right.
So, Professor M.L. Raina, it would be very difficult to compartmentalize him because he's written so much, read so much, influenced so many lives. I remember in class somebody asked him once, सर आपको कैसे पता चलता है कि इस टॉपिक पे रिसर्च करनी है तो उन्होंने बोला तुम्हें कैसे पता चलता है इस पे रिसर्च नहीं करनी But if I'm eating a sandwich in a coffee shop and it compares with the sandwich I had earlier, I'll ask the server कि आज इसमें क्या फर्क है or if I'm having a cup of coffee the barista is different.
Correct.
I'll say what additional thing did you do. So the same question I ask when I read anything.
Correct.
And there are no boundaries where reading and research is concerned कि मुझे ये पढ़ना है और ये नहीं पढ़ना. So once a researcher, always a researcher. और बात सही है कि पापी पेट का सवाल तो है ही. लेकिन उस पापी पेट के साथ अगर आप उस काम को एंजॉय करते हो और खासकर अब जिस किस्म की ग्रेड्स मिल रही हैं टीचिंग में तो कभी कभी पॉसिबल होता है कि पापी पेट को एक साइड पे कर दो you enjoy what a student is doing you become a part of that research so my experience as a researcher is that there are no boundaries whatever you are doing even if it's your mother at home who's making say आज हमने क्या खाया था सुबह इडड़ा अब इडड़ा में वो सोचती हैं कि जो बघार है उस पे मैं आज ये करती हूँ तो उसको भी हम रिसर्च कह सकते हैं research is not up there it's a part of our lives every fabric you wear every medicine you take every thought you have is a part of that research
Continuous.
I am very glad that Dr. Sanjay Mukherjee brings in a lot of humor into his lecture because unfortunately over the years लगने लगा है कि academia means कि तुम कभी हंसोगे नहीं which is very sad so thank you so much.
Two things Madam mentioned, young people. One, that there is always a prior sandwich comes, prior thing comes, and then you see what is different. Prior learning, analysis, and your contribution. Second, made me remember T.S. Eliot, who said, criticism is as inevitable as breathing. Criticism is as inevitable as breathing. The ghost of T.S. Eliot visited Terry Eagleton. He writes in The Significance of Theory that if I say this is a beer glass, it is a theoretical statement. Why? Because if I drop it, it will break. Therefore, I know the constitution of the glass. I know what is this glass made up of. That knowledge about the thing is theoretical. Eliot to Terry Eagleton. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Please.
So when we talk about Terry Eagleton and Raymond Williams, do you feel that Terry Eagleton in a way, I don't know, is saying the opposite of what Raymond Williams is saying, or is it like somewhat of a Aristotle Plato thing, or does he agree with Raymond Williams at one point, and even Stuart Hall when we talk about specifically in cultural theory? So if we're applying both of them together, then how do we bifurcate while doing research? And then do you also think that there's a lot of research done already on that, or always there's scope? I mean, of course, there's always scope, but I mean, when you start doing research, there are all these questions that you have. So, yeah.
So you start thinking what are the overlapping areas and what is the divergence. Okay. For example, Raymond Williams is on record saying that he learned two things from Cambridge. he came from a very small town in Wales, and his father was a railway signalman. And he could study at Cambridge because he topped the county. जो district में, he topped the county, therefore he could come. And when he entered Cambridge, he realized that in the Cambridge cafeteria, there was a clear-cut demarcation of the upper class students and these scholarship wallets. Funded students, okay. So he realized that in the behavior, and then he started thinking, and Cambridge Library then gave him left literature, Marxist literature, okay. So he joined practice with theory, okay. And yet, who was his guru at Cambridge? F.R. Lewis. He is on record saying, whatever I have learned about literature is because of my guru F.R. Lewis, but F.R. Lewis was not a Marxist thinker, rather the opposite. What is F.R. Lewis's famous work? Mass Civilization and Minority Culture. Minority culture. Again, Raymond Williams says, I will differ from my guru. Culture is not minority. The people on the road, they are building the road, they are humming a song while building the road. That is their culture. So he writes an essay in 1958, Culture is Ordinary. So you have to find the overlaps and then you find the divergences. Gary Day has a beautiful book called Literary Criticism, A New History. Okay, in that, when he talks about the Greek situation, he talks about exactly what you mentioned, the Guru Shishya Parampara. The masters and the disciples, and how the disciples chart out their own path by taking influence from the master, but again, one has to track that. I've been emphasizing upon chronology and tracking. When you do that, certain things will automatically come out. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions, observations or comments? So Professor Mukherjee will be with us till evening, and so after lunch, if some of you will have some questions, then also can meet him personally and interact. And on behalf of the department and my institution or the university, I convey my thanks officially or formally to Professor Mukherjee to be a part of this event. And thank you very much. So now we will break for the lunch. We'll enjoy our lunch now.